This is Mastering Your Wealth with David Gagnan, the podcast.
A lot of times this emergency fund gets overlooked, David, because people are just trying to make sure they can pay the bills. Forget the extra stuff.
Yeah, you kind of want to be prepared for the unexpected and have a backup plan. So if these unexpected expenses come about, and it could be anything. And I get clients that call and their car broke down, they need to replace it, or their furnace is gone, or roof needs to be replaced. The stories are endless. And it's good to have cash set aside for the unexpected things. And when we do planning, we try to get folks to at least get a cushion set up just in case, or a strategy where you have access to liquidity immediately or pretty quick without having to cash in something that might be a retirement account with costly, maybe early withdrawal penalties and tax costs and things like that. So, one of the things that I think is pretty important for everybody, if they can qualify for it, is just to have an equity line of credit set up on their home. It doesn't cost you anything. It gives you availability to the value of your home if, in fact, you need it. And you only pay interest on the daily outstanding balance. And as you pay that down, the cost of borrowing gets adjusted every day as you pay down the principal. But it gives you time to plan how to tackle an event where you have an unexpected event. The equity line doesn't create any taxes. There'll be a little bit of interest, but then you can look at all the moving financial components in your financial world to see, okay, now we have this equity line balance. How do we efficiently pay this off? Whatever various resources that might be available. But I think a HELOC, equity line of credit, is a nice tool to have in your back pocket just for planning flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously an option to look into. And some folks may say, well, wait a minute, I don't want to do that. I've worked really hard at saving, or maybe I've utilized all these extra tools and strategies that, David, you've talked about here in creating guaranteed income for life. Maybe they're looking at that as you have that reoccurring income coming in. So maybe that's a balance of, okay, well, this month I had these unexpected bills, so that income's going to have to pay a little bit more to this. And then next month I got to kind of be a little skimpy on some things because I got to make up for that loss. So I think there's a lot of different options out there. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, we utilize different planning strategies, and we can show people how to shred their debt really quick with just managing their cash flow more efficiently every month and get out from under that debt in a very short period of time. And in time, we're going to be providing some tools for folks that can do that very methodically, and that'll be an announcement down the road when we have some big plans in place that we're going to announce. Absolutely.
So listen, if debt is a concern, you're wondering, how do I shred this credit card debt? I think that everyone's kind of feeling that, especially because of, inflation and all these things we talk about. That's certainly a conversation to have with David. And then if you're wondering, okay, how do I even start an emergency plan, or how do I start padding my emergency fund even more? That phone number is 203-872-0009. Again, 203-872-0009. That website, of course, masteringyourwealthradio.com. Think about this. How much will you spend per month in retirement? Well, the new average is about $5,300 a month, or you put that into annual, that's about $63,000. So how much of that actually comes from Social Security and even pensions? Well, there is your starting point right there. It seems really simple, but at the end of the day, David, not that easy.
It is simple as a starting point, but it is definitely not as easy as a complete retirement plan, right? So that $5,300 per month number is useful because it gives people something tangible to react to. It gets them thinking, could I live on that? Would I need more? Would I need less? But retirement income planning cannot stop at an average, right? The real question is not what the average retiree spends. The real question is, what will your retirement actually cost, and how much of that income is dependable? And the first thing we do is separate retirement expenses into categories. So you have your essential expenses such as housing, food, utilities, insurance, Medicare premiums, prescriptions, taxes, transportation. And when we try to model planning out and find these spending requirements, we give people an exercise to complete it, because most people haven't been through this type of exercise to see on paper in their numbers what they're truly spending every month. And then you have lifestyle expenses such as travel, you have hobbies, dining out, gifts to grandchildren or children, home improvements, things that make retirement enjoyable. Those are the things that make you feel good. And then you have surprise expenses such as out-of-pocket healthcare events, long-term care needs, inflation shocks, market downturns, car replacements, home repairs, helping family members. The list goes on and on from there. And once we know the spending target, then we look at guaranteed income. So that usually means checking to see what your Social Security benefits look like. If you have pensions coming in, sometimes an annuity income stream, maybe rental income. Those are the income sources designed to show up every month, and regardless of what the stock market is doing. So if someone needs $5,300 per month in Social Security plus pension income covers $3,800, now we see we have a $1,500 per month gap that we have to fulfill with a good income plan. And that gap would normally come from your savings, investments, retirement accounts, and so on. But that is where the planning becomes more detailed. What we have to answer is which accounts should we draw from first? We want to be financially efficient, tax efficient if we can. And how much can we safely withdraw? What happens when inflation rises expenses? What happens if a spouse passes away when Social Security check disappears? So those events occur because not everybody lives forever. And what happens when required minimum distributions begin on your retirement accounts? And what if Medicare premiums go up because your taxable income is too high? So there's all these variables we have to kind of look at, forecast, see if they're going to impact somebody, but also plan for the unexpected. And that's where I think people get caught up because they don't have a plan. They don't have a contingency backup strategy.
But that's where you come in. You're the one that starts putting that plan together. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what we do is we design a personalized strategic income distribution plan after we see and test what they're currently doing by doing a very detailed forecast into the future. So what we can do is if we change nothing about what somebody's doing and take their resources, their monthly expenses, and what they're saving and the date and age they want to retire and adjust it for inflation and taxes, and then model this out going out to age 90, 95. And now we can see what potential problems might lie ahead, because your best decisions are going to be made with your finances by looking into the future with what you're doing today in your own numbers to identify what potential problems might exist. They could be running out of income or money. Maybe you're paying too much in taxes. Maybe your money's being stored and accumulated in the wrong tax types at the wrong amounts. What about stress testing it when a spouse passes away early on in retirement and one of the Social Security benefits will drop off, which is the lower of the two? What changes there? What about a healthcare out-of-pocket event? And this is derailing more retirements than I've seen over the years, because the cost of care, and I'm talking about care that Medicare will not pay for, or your insurance, health insurances. This would be somebody that needs help in the home or in a skilled care facility. These are expenses that typically are coming out of your pocket. And I have a family member that will be out of money in about a year, and the cost of that care right now is over $200,000 a year.
Oh my gosh.
And they started with a high 7-figure nest egg. So planning really so crucial. So you have clarity as to what is going on, clarity about what problems might lie ahead, clarity about what better solutions and strategies you can implement. And then as you go through that process, you are validating what is possible and have the backup systems in place. Now you can go into retirement with confidence and comfort, knowing you can do what you want to do because it's been planned. And it's not a plan of hope. And this is the problem. Most people work all their lives. They've saved a lot of money. They get to a certain number and they hope it's all going to work by what they have saved, but there's no plan. They just have a pool of money and they just hope it's going to be okay for the rest of their life and it's going to turn out the way they anticipated. And that's usually not the case. People are vulnerable in so many different ways with that type of plan. And we point these things out and then we plan for it so we can mitigate risk. And not just the stock market, but longevity risk and sequences, returns risk, healthcare risk, all those types of things that can blindside people. And then it hits them at a time in retirement where it's too late to fix it.
Right. And that's what we're trying to avoid here, is because if you're proactive and you put a plan together, you will hear us say that 4-letter word many, many times, plan. This is where you're going to find that, hopefully that success you've always, looked for in retirement. We've been talking about, of course, income here on today's show, preparing for that emergency income fund, plus making sure you have enough income there available. So when you're in retirement, you're not going to run out of money. You're able to spend how you want because you know how your plan is designed. And because we're talking about income, let's do that complimentary income plan review. Again, that phone number, 203-872-0009, 203-872-0009, that website, masteringyourwealthradio.com. You know, when you think about it, the 401k really took off back in the 1980s. Congress created it as a way to defer taxes on certain income, not as a primary retirement plan. But for many Americans, that's pretty much exactly what it's become. So is the 401k really dead? Yahoo Finance asked Charles Payne on Fox Business.
I don't know that it's dead. I will say, though, that the 401k hasn't lived up to the hype. And I think that's one of the problems, right? And every year they come out and they'll say we have this many 401k millionaires, right? It sounds like a huge number. Cool. Then you say, well, how many people have a 401k? And it's like 0.03% of everyone with one. So the promise was that if you just put this money in, it was going to end up being worth a lot of money. And I don't know that it's dead, but I think people have to approach it differently. And I think they're starting to, particularly like the 60-40 portfolio. I think that's a huge mistake on the 40 side. 40% in bonds, I think, is just a massive mistake at this point.
All right. Well, listen, he says a lot there in that clip, so I want to break it down here. David, what do you think about this? I mean, do you see the 401k getting a revamp? Have you heard of people talk about these pain points? What do you think the changes should be?
The 401k, as well as the IRAs, they were actually brought into our system in the mid-'70s. And here's what the government was seeing. What they were seeing were the working folks were not saving enough money to have enough of a nest egg to have a good retirement or a comfortable retirement. They were seeing that people weren't saving enough for retirement and only falling back on Social Security as a retirement plan. And that was not what Social Security was intended for. Social Security was there as a supplement to help somebody with income in the retirement, not as their main source. So what they did was they came out with these pre-tax retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, SEPs, and so on. So they needed to give folks a perceived tax break or a benefit in their mind. And that's meaning that they put the money in pre-tax. They are going to cut down their tax bill for what they put in from each year of their working. But then that money's growing and compounding taxes, not only on the initial deposits, but all the growth for all the years up until they get to a point when they take distributions. Now, that was giving people the incentive to save more money than they normally would. And it made it easy for them to save because now it's being deducted from their weekly or monthly paycheck. And it was a way to get people to have consistency in savings and have some more money when they got to the retirement years. Now, I don't think the 401k is dead, but I do think the old way people use 401k is kind of incomplete. For decades, the retirement message was simple. Put money into your 401k, invest, let it grow, and one day you'll retire. But that leaves out the most important part of the retirement. How do you turn that balance into a dependable income? And that's where income planning is so important. We just had a discussion about that. The 401k is really truly an accumulation vehicle. That's really the main purpose of it. And it has limited investment choices because if you look at the investment environment out there, there's so many incredible things that you could take better control of how your money gets managed and some of the features that are available outside of a 401k compared to inside of a 401k. Now, it's very good at helping people save money on a tax-deferred basis while working, but it was never originally designed to be complete retirement pension replacement. So the old pension system gave retirees a monthly paycheck for life. That was having a paycheck for life from a pension plan. And then a lot of companies eliminated their pension benefit plans and now their contribution plans, such as these 401ks. So the 401k gives people an account balance, and that means the responsibility for investment risk is on them. Withdrawal risk is on the owner of that 401k. You have longevity risk, tax risk, market risk has shifted from the employer to the retiree. And so that's the big burden right now with 401ks. And the other issue is the so-called safe part of the portfolio. So for years, people would put a portion into bond funds, which they thought would stabilize their retirement portfolio, but it hasn't worked out that well. If you go back to 2022 and you looked at a 401k plan, because I've done a lot of an analysis, a lot of people were split between 60% in equity funds, 40% bond funds. Those two asset classes did very poorly in 2022. Bond funds lost money because the interest rates moved. And people were kind of confused by that because they didn't think bonds could lose that kind of money. And up to that point, the yields were really low. We don't use bond funds. We use bond fund alternatives, which have much higher yields for the same amount of risk or even less. And so, that's how we enhance income planning, because we can find higher yield tools that the wealthy people use. We want our clients to do this and have access to the tools that wealthy people have access to, and that's what we use. And so the last few years reminded everyone that bonds can lose value too, so especially when interest rates rise. So retirees need to rethink what safety really means.
For more details or to sit down with David for your complimentary financial GPS, visit masteringyourwealthradio.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Wealth Advisors, LLC, BWA, a registered investment advisor and an affiliate of Brookstone Capital Management, LLC. BWA and First Financial Planners are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BWA, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents.
Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
Any comments regarding safe and secure products and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims-paying ability of the issuing company and are not offered by Brookstone.
David Gagnan and First Financial Planners are not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.
Registered investment advisors and investment advisor representatives act as fiduciaries for all of our investment management clients. We have an obligation to act in the best interest of our clients and to make full disclosure of any conflicts of interest. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV 2A Item 4, for additional information.